And so we know what is happening in Burkina Faso. Indeed, we should be working closer with our comrades in Burkina Faso. Unfortunately, this government has created some tension between us and Burkina Faso because our president went and opened his mouth too wide. You saw the video. He went and was doing conconsa about your neighbor. We all are here. We are suffering. America called you small, and you are so excited, and then your neighbor, you are doing conconsa about him. And so it has created some diplomatic tension. He went there, went and apologized, but still, it's not the best. So when government changes, we have to go and talk to our neighbors because we must work together. Indeed, the whole anti-terrorism strategy of this sub-region was done in Accra. It's called the Accra Initiative. And so we are the hosts of that initiative. So we must be reaching out to them and seeing how we can collaborate with them in order that we quench the fire in their houses. Because if there's fire in your neighbor's house, you don't help him to put it off, it will spread to your house. And so I think that we must improve our relationship with Burkina Faso. At the same time, we must also strengthen our surveillance and security so that in case it comes into our borders, we are able to deal with it. And that is also the reason why we must solve the Boko crisis as quickly as possible, because just across the border is where this thing is happening. And terrorism feeds in through a weak link. And so where you have crisis, that is where it will come through. And that is the reason why the issues of Boko must be dealt with. And that probably could be one of the reasons that they are requesting a region because of security. It can give a better focus on the security of the area and all that.
Yeah, yes, greetings once again, everyone. My name is Kwame Gonza. Yeah, so the former Ghanaian president, came out to, of course, make comments on what Akufo-Addo did in the past, and this was in 2022 during the U.S. Africa Summit of 2022, or which is 2022. Okay, of course, 2022, which is 2022. Now, during this particular summits, the U.S. Africa Leadership Summit, President Nana Addo came out to report Burkina Faso, or a video which went circulating around the globe, which was very fortunate, and in many cases it was very shocking to someone, or even for someone, President Akufo-Addo for that matter, who had originally presented himself as a Pan-Africanist, pushing back against imperialism. We saw his comments, which of course energized a lot of Africans, and we had a lot of hope in him. The fact that there was a video circulating on the internet in which he pushed back on Macron when they met, of course, in Paris, and he said that Africa cannot continue to rely on aid, because aid has not worked in the past and it will not work. So, of course, these comments were very welcome by majority of the Africans. But then, along the line, President Akufo-Addo went on to do certain things which were despicable, of course. And one of those which we can say is the invitation of the United States military base, in Ghana, for it to occupy a major airport, the biggest airport in the country, international airport, which is the Kotoka International Airport. Of course, that airport too has questions, and people are talking about the fact that airport should be renamed after Dr. Kwame Nkrumah or any other patriot in Ghana who contributed to the country, other than a man who overthrew a democratically elected government of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. So Akufo-Addo along the line, it's like he went off the rail, right? He went off the rail and started behaving like a puppet. And so we saw these comments that, he made at the US Africa Summit in blaming Burkina Faso, but he did not blame himself, because look, Burkina Faso never blamed Ghana when Ghana invited the United States military into its country. Now, when Ghana invited the Wagner to help it to fight the terrorism, which terrorism was brought by the West, the same West, when they killed President Muammar Gaddafi, which of course President Akufo-Addo ignores, and he knows it. We know that he knows it, but doesn't want to mention it. the West is the one who brought this insecurity within the Sahel and all the way to Burkina Faso. And Akufo-Addo doesn't mention that. He went ahead to mention that Burkina Faso, which brought the Wagner to help it to fight the insecurity which was brought by the West, has brought Wagner in their country. So Akufo-Addo is accusing Burkina Faso, but he's not accusing himself for bringing the United States military and officially handing over Ghana as a neo-colonial state to the West. And Burkina Faso too did not accuse Ghana for that matter. So these comments by Akufo-Addo, of course, they created a lot of tension. Now, on this channel, on Connect Africa here, we're going to come to analyze Akufo-Addo as a person, as a president, during his era as a president. What has he contributed? We will analyze him on all scales, economic, domestic policy, his policy towards the African continent, his foreign policy. We will analyze him on that. And of course, he has done a couple of things, like, for example, the year of return, beyond the return. He has done all these things, but we will analyze him without us being biased in any way. We will come and do analysis on him. And why are we going to do that? We're going to do an analysis on President Akufo-Addo because his term is ending in December. Ghana is going for votes. It's going for elections in December. So therefore, in January, they will have a new president. And one of those people who are contesting for the presidency, of course, is one of his opponents, who is a former president. President, Mahama is a former president. We call him a president because once a soldier is always a soldier. So President Mahama, as he was touring one of the regions which are faced with a lot of insecurity, which have a border with Burkina Faso in the northern part of the country, he mentioned about Burkina Faso and the fact that the northern part of the country could face insecurity, could face security challenges due to the rebels that are coming maybe from Burkina Faso and of course the Sahel. Now he mentioned, as we have seen, and even the media platforms, of course, have spoken about the President Mahama's comment. So what he said is that President Akufo-Addo going to the United States, during the US Africa Summit, he got so excited and he used the even very dangerous word that he opened his mouth wide. So let me first take you back. Actually, before we move back, before we move, let me first take you to the comments which President Akufo-Addo made during the US Africa Summit. What did he say? Let us go to what President Akufo-Addo himself said.
You were part of the meeting, and its significance for us. And I think that beyond everything, that is a matter that I want to urge upon you. Today, Russian mercenaries are on our northern border. Burkina Faso has now entered into an arrangement to go along with Mali in employing the Wagner forces there. I believe a mine in southern Burkina has been allocated to them as a form of payment for their services. Prime Minister of Burkina Faso in the last 10 days has been in Moscow. And to have them operating on our northern border is particularly distressing for us in Ghana. Apart from not accepting the idea of great powers once again making Africa their theater of operation, we have a particular position that you know about over the Ukraine war, where we have been very, very vocal and upfront about condemning the invasion of Russia by Russia. And therefore, they're now to have this group at our borders is a matter of some considerable disquiet and concern for us. And we really like to have a privileged opportunity to talk about its implications and what we believe ought to be the case. This is what took place with the discussion in the Congress yesterday, which I found very fruitful. And I would like the themes of that discussion should be the themes that we should continue to address. To what extent we can have you as a partner in confronting these threats. It is very important that ECOWAS and the West African area remains a democratic space.
Now, so there is this attempt by African heads of state, especially those ones who are very incompetent, to use democracy and democratic credentials as an excuse for Western interference into the African continent. So they use that as an excuse. They use democracy as an excuse. The so-called rule of law as an excuse to hold Africa back. And of course, that has to do majorly with the ruling class, the current ruling class on the African continent, of course, which is very, very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. Now, for us, we are not here to support either President Mahama or President Akufo-Addo, because none of them, from our analysis as Pan-Africanists, represent the interest of the African people, because all of them, since time immemorial, they have worked with the enemies of the African people in impoverishing, the Africans, for that matter. So I want that, I just want to make that clear. But from President Akufo-Addo's words, of course, it has implications. His words have implications looking at what he said as President Akufo-Addo. A lot of things come from, there's a lot of things you can think of from what he said as a person. Number one, it shows somebody who is not even bothered about the African continent, for that matter. Even though, of course, in his remarks, he makes, some, allegations. Of course, we can only call them allegations, that the African continent, he doesn't want the African continent to be made the theater of power politics for the great countries. Of course, that's the United States and Russia. But at the core, it shows somebody who really doesn't know the importance of neighborhood, of talking to your neighbors, and even of Africa being together and acting together, because Ghana is a neighbor with Burkina Faso. So if Akufo-Addo as a president had these concerns, why did he not? Because these are neighbors. He can even drive there. He can be driven to Burkina Faso. Why did he not go to Burkina Faso and address these things instead of taking them to Washington? So number one, it shows somebody who is not really interested in the African continent. Number two, for me, it shows you that Ghana's sovereignty is at stake. All right. Ghana's sovereignty has almost been sold over by this particular president. All right. Because he's talking about the United States coming in. He's saying that he wants to see how they can work with the United States to, approach these things. And of course, he also mentioned the things he has given to the United States. President Akufo-Addo mentioned that, we have come out and we have condemned Ukraine, as you know. Therefore, we want to see how we can work with you. So he's telling them that we have given you whatever we have given you, which is the condemnation of Ukraine all the way, condemnation of Russia for invading Ukraine, as you know, all the way. And therefore, you have to come and protect us. Now, this has huge implications even for the security system in Ghana. It undermines the ability of the security system in Ghana to protect the country. It undermines the army, the Ghana Armed Forces. It undermines them. It is like saying the Ghana Armed Forces do not have the ability of protecting Ghana as a country. And therefore, you need the United States to come in as an army. And of course, this is giving the imperialists an opportunity. This is just like opening a door for them to come and take over the country. It's just, you are just opening the door and selling out your own brothers in your neighborhood. You are selling your brothers, and you are giving the enemy to come in and exploit not only you, but also exploit your brothers. You are calling them to come and kill your brothers, but you are not addressing the underlying problem that Burkina Faso is facing. The fact that insecurity within this region, the Sahel region, and of course, this greater West African region, was brought by the same imperialists you are reporting to, the same imperialists you are inviting, but you are not addressing the fact that the imperialists, they are the ones who brought the insecurity on the African continent. And it was not Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso is fighting for its life. Mali is fighting for its own life. All right. And of course, the leaders of the Sahel states, which is AES, Burkina Faso, and Mali, have mentioned that ECOWAS has never been there for us to help us to fight this insecurity. ECOWAS as an institution is an important institution. You know, is a regional economic community, is an important institution which has not helped. It has not helped the people in the Sahel to fight the insecurity that they have been facing ever since the United States and NATO and its allies, they brought this insecurity in the Sahel in 2011 when they overthrew the government of President Muammar Gaddafi and even killed Muammar Gaddafi. President Akufo-Addo doesn't address these facts and these realities, but instead looks at these people as the gods of all. Therefore, they should come and help him. Of course, which is unfortunate, and also it shows or it puts in question his leadership as a president, Akufo-Addo. It puts in question his ability to build a sovereign state, an independent state, unlike people like Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who we saw that they were solid on building an independent state, and for that matter, building an independent African continent. So it is very, very, of course, unfortunate. Let us see what the media houses, of course, said in Ghana. Of course, the media houses also picked this up, and they spoke about it. They published it. Let us see what they said. So the media houses, we are reading this one is Star FM Online, which is a media platform in Ghana. Of course, it published this even today, this media platform. No, it published this on August 7th. It is saying that Mahama criticizes Akufo-Addo for poor diplomatic relations with Burkina Faso. This is what the news said in Ghana. Of course, a lot of other media platforms, said a lot of things. The flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, John, Mahama, has criticized Akufo-Addo-led government for the poor handling of diplomatic relations with neighboring Burkina Faso following the recent insurgency in the West African region. During a press conference or a press engagement dubbed Mahama Conversations in the Bolgatanga, after his 4-day campaign tour of the upper region, I think it's the upper west or upper east or something, the former president stressed the need for close cooperation with neighboring countries to curtail any external threats to Ghana. So this is what he said, unquote, "We know what is happening in Burkina Faso. Indeed, we should be working closer with our comrades in Burkina Faso." So what is interesting here is that President Mahama, of Ghana, the former President Mahama of Ghana, who is also contesting for presidency come elections in December, came out to call the Burkina Faso government or people our comrades. These are the words he used. Indeed, we should be working closer with our comrades in Burkina Faso. Unfortunately, this government, he's talking about the Akufo-Addo government, this government has created tension between us and Burkina Faso because our president has opened his mouth wide. You saw the video. So this is what he said. You saw the video. He went and was doing kokonsa about our neighbors. So what he's saying, kokonsa in Ghana basically means a gossip. He went and he was gossiping about our neighbors. So this is gossip. This is the word he used. You saw the video. He went and he was doing kokonsa. He was doing gossiping about our neighbors. We are all here. So he's saying that we are all here. We are suffering. So he's saying that we Ghanaians and Burkina Faso, of course, generally Africans. So there's an African, connotation to his words. We are all here. We are suffering. All of us Africans are suffering. America called you small. So this is what he's saying. So because America called you small, he's referring to President Akufo-Addo. Because America called you small and you are so excited and you are doing kokonsa and you are gossiping about your neighbor. And so it has created some kind of diplomatic tension. And after he said it, he went there to apologize. So this is what, of course, President Akufo-Addo did. He went later on to Burkina Faso to apologize. He first sent there, actually, the minister, the ambassador, of course, Ghana to Burkina Faso, and later on the minister of Foreign Affairs of Ghana also followed, and then President Akufo-Addo himself followed on. So your neighbor, you are doing kokonsa about your neighbor, which is gossip. You are gossiping about your neighbor, and so he said it has created tension, some kind of tension, diplomatic tension. And after he said it, he went there to apologize, but he did not. It is not the best, but it is still not the best. That's what the former, president said. So he said that, he will, when everything subsides, when the government changes. So what he's saying is that when the government changes, we will go there and make this right. When the government changes, we have to go and talk to our neighbors because we must work together. All right. Indeed, the whole terrorism strategy of this sub-region was done in Ghana, and it was called, the Accra Initiative. It was called the Accra Initiative. So these are the words, of President Mahama. So I must put, a disclaimer on this video that we are strictly a Pan-African platform, and we are not in support of, of either these groups, because all these groups, what they have done to the continent is that they have brought a lot of confusion on the African continent, that what we are supposed to be doing is not what we are doing. We are engaging, actually, in their politics, and that politics which we are engaging in has not benefited the African people. So you can only conclude that this type of politics which they are playing has only, brought so much confusion to the African people, that the African people are not concentrating on the right things of working to build the African continent. That's not what we are doing. These groups are concentrating on enriching their pockets and are aiding the continued, subjugation of the African continent through these fights. And that is what is happening. So we are not supporting any of them. We are not supporting either, NPP of President Akufo-Addo, and we are not supporting either NDC, but rather we are bringing this for your understanding as people who are watching out there across, the continent, across the African continent, and in the diaspora, especially the Africans, so that you can be able to understand what is going on, in our continent. Now, of course, this brings a lot of things, into question, as we have, already said. Is Ghana really a sovereign country? Is Ghana really a sovereign country? This is a question. Of course, you can put that in the comment section. You can put what you think in the comment section. Is Ghana really a sovereign country, as we see currently where it is? Looking at, the person who's leading the country and his comments, and the fact that he's willing to sell out his own neighbors. Is Ghana really a sovereign country? That is one question, of course, which each of you, can answer, can put an answer in the question, can put an answer to this question in the comment section or in the chat. Now, there's division of our continent by the political class. I've already also mentioned on this, but we ask also a question. There's division in the political class in itself. Of course, they have divided the continent. These groups which are warring, these political groups which are warring across the continent. And of course, we are going to do an analysis whereby the opposition, candidate in Zambia has currently been arrested, who is Freddie Membe. We saw him. He had a video which went viral across the continent when he was condemning the United States, and the fact that it comes around, and it preaches democracy and freedom, yet it is oppressing us and is killing our people. It is, exploiting our continent. So he came out and made some comments. So we're gonna talk about that. So these groups, these particular groups which we are seeing, it shows also that they have a political divide. They have a division. There's a division between the political class itself. If you look at the comments by Nanado, and then who represents the NPP in the country, and you look at the comments of the NNDC, who is President John Mahama, former president. But we ask a question now: can this divide be exploited by revolutionaries, the Pan-African revolutionaries? And to myself, I say that it is possible. Yes, we can. we can exploit these divides as Pan-Africanists and take advantage of them to build a new Africa. Because what we want is an Africa which develops rapidly and is governed, with a centralized force which gives our continent direction to move rapidly. Simply, we want the continent to have one direction for us to move rapidly as a people across the continent. But can the revolutionaries across the African continent take advantage? That is the question of these divides that we are seeing within the political class. That is number one. I think that we can, but of course, yourself, you can put your comments, in the chat section and in the comment section. You can put your decisions and your thoughts in the comment section. Can the revolutionaries take advantage of this? That's number one. And the other thing, which of course I've already touched a little bit, is the fact that it shows the incapability of President Akufo-Addo to manage the affairs of his country. And therefore, we should ask a question. As a president, why did he come to power if he cannot manage the affairs of his country? If you cannot manage, if you cannot protect your country, if you cannot protect the resources of your country, if you cannot protect your people from terrorism, and if you cannot carry out reasonable diplomacy, if you cannot carry out diplomacy, real diplomacy with your African brothers, not white, in Burkina Faso, they are not white, they are not Arabs, they are Africans. So if you cannot dialogue with your brothers, then of course your ability to manage your country then comes into question. It comes into question. Now, we say, is this man really capable? If you look at the words that he's been saying, or the words he said at this particular 2022 US Africa Summit, it comes into question. It also shows, if you look at it carefully, it also shows a lack of a national agenda. I think that to him as a president, it shows lack of a national agenda, both domestically, because if you're talking about domestically, then if you're presenting your problems to the United States, it shows that you don't have a domestic policy for defense, a strong policy for defending the country. So therefore, you have to run to the United States. All right, Ghana has more than 40,000, military servicemen. So why do you need 1,000 military men from the United States? So it's undermining the Ghana Armed Forces. And it shows also that there's no policy, in his government to strengthen the security system, the army in the country, the security forces in the country, and equip them with some of the most modern equipment. This is what it shows. This is what shows. And it shows, of course, there's no African policy. There's no African policy in this particular government. Just like any other neo-colonial government, it just actually confirms the fact that this is a neo-colonial government, which is not running in the interest of the people. We look at people like Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. His first policy was towards Africa. Ghana's foreign policy during Kwame Nkrumah was towards the African continent. That's what it was. His policy was majorly for mobilizing the African continent. His foreign policy, Nkrumah's foreign policy, even when you read the book called The Political and Social Thought of Kwame Nkrumah, which was written by Ama Baine, Nkrumah's first foreign policy was towards Africa. Now, for this particular government of President Nana Addo, his first foreign policy is in the imperialist countries, in the neo-colonial countries, in neo-colonizing countries. So now we are in neo-colonial states now. That is what we are. So he is a neo-colonial representative. He's a representative of neo-colonialism. And this is what it implies, that he cannot take care of his own affairs. He doesn't have these policies on defense, or he doesn't have an African policy. He doesn't have a clear foreign policy. Therefore, he has to beg for imperialists to help him to do whatever he has to do in his government. So it also shows, for me, the failure of both political divides when it comes to, of course, the NDC itself, which is opposition party currently, and of course the NNPP, which is currently governing. It shows failure of policy in the whole country and the continent, that they are not interested in protecting the interests of the continent and making the African continent, move forward, but rather they are locked into their small houses of their political parties. These people are not caring about the interests of the continent. And this is actually what brought us a lot of problems in 1884, 1885. The fact that our kings and chiefs were concentrating on their small states. All right, remember that before colonialism and slavery, we had more than 2,000 states, because each of the tribes in Africa is a state, is almost a nation. All right, we had almost 2,000 nations. All right, so now each of the kings and queens and chiefs in the African continent were concentrating on their small states. Now, while they were concentrating on their small nations on the African continent, we did not know what was coming from outside. That a superior civilization, not necessarily the word superior, but a civilization with more superior technology was coming against us to colonize us. And therefore, from our analysis, we see that this is being repeated right now, that these political parties now have become the duplicate of what was happening in 1885. And of course, which is very unfortunate, that instead of us looking at the interests of the whole continent and protecting it from these external forces, which are so overwhelming, and that's what Nkrumah was actually trying to do, in 1963 with the formation of the Organization of African Unity. And of course, all his life, all his fight until 1972, that he died, that he died with a lot of pain, and he was still fighting even in his even on his deathbed. Nkrumah was still fighting to unify the African continent, because he understood very well the danger posed by these foreign powers and these foreign countries, and the fact that as small states we could not survive their power as Africans. So this is very important to also to note. It's very important to note that these political parties that we are seeing on the African continent, which are more than 2,000, I'm sure they are more than 2,000 on the African continent. Now they have replaced all the tribes and small tribal nations on the African continent. So now this puts our continent and our lives and the future of our children and grandchildren in extreme danger. And not only on the continent, but even in the diaspora. And the fact that our continent is the one which is supposed to give support to all people of African descent and the diaspora, because this is the mothership. If you remember very well, China did not gain respect until the Chinese across the world did not get that much respect until they built themselves China. So until we build ourselves Africa, we are going to be in a lot of problems as African people. Now, this brings us, of course, to the solution. Once again, the solution for us is what our forefathers and our foremothers prescribed. All right, what they subscribed to and what they prescribed to us, and that is a union government. This generation must fight for a union government of African states. That is the task of our generation, and that means us identifying the roadblocks. That means us identifying the challenges on the continent. And of course, the challenges, Nkrumah has already analyzed it for us. There's no need for us even to do huge analysis across the African continent for us to understand what the problem is. The problem has already been analyzed for us by Nkrumah. And the problem is imperialism. That is number one. The problem is imperialism. And this is backed up by data even today, that when a report was published by the United Nations, it showed that Africa's money is being lost to illicit financial outflow. What this basically means is stealing. Africa's money is being lost to stealing, and the institutions which we are identified that are stealing, they are foreign banks and Western corporations and mining corporations. They are the ones who are stealing the most. Number one enemy of Africa currently, of course, other people may come with social issues and may mention that these are the issues. Those are not real issues. The real issue is the exploitation of the African continent by imperialism. That is the number one, problem, and that is how Nkrumah analyzed it. That the number one enemy of the African continent and the African people is imperialism and neo-colonialism. Number two is the Africans who are collaborating with this system of extracting this wealth, and that includes your typical political parties on the African continent. These are enemies of the African continent. Now, when we analyze this, when we have this analysis from Kwame Nkrumah gave us, and including, of course, our ancestors like Walter Rodney, who wrote the book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. Actually, what Walter Rodney prescribed is that Africa needs to disconnect itself completely from Europe and operate on its own. This is what Walter Rodney, prescribed. So when we know that the problem is imperialism and neocolonialism, which is even, we see it today that it is attacking Dangote from all angles, we know that this is imperialism, of course, working with internal agents, some of them who are masked themselves into being journalists, some of them are masked themselves into being in political parties, then we know what to do now. And we know that the solution that was given to us is the unification of the African continent into a single government. Therefore, then we will get one person to lead us forward, one Pan-Africanist person to lead us forward with a new system of government, which puts the interests of the African people at the center, then we will be able to build rapidly like how the rest of the world has built. The Middle East has built their civilization, it has rebuilt their countries on their own political systems without anyone, forcing them on how to do. And within 20 years, they have been able to develop. And therefore, this is what Nkrumah also was looking for us as African people, so that we can develop rapidly, we can move rapidly in a period of less than 20 years. We should be able to catch up with the rest of the world and attain, a greater GDP, per capita, or greater economy, build our own trains, build our own vehicles, build our own infrastructure, all right? Build our own telecommunication systems, build our own companies. We should have our own Googles. We should have our own Facebook. We should have our own institutions, all right? We should have our own Oracle. We should have our own Amazon. Like what China has is the same thing that we should have. There's no need for Western institutions coming into the African continent, and then we use them and we celebrate that this is an achievement. It is not an achievement if we are using Google in Africa. We should have our own Google. We should have our own Facebook. We should have our own Amazon. We should have our own eBay. We should have our own whatever it is. We should have our own Huawei. We should have our own Nokia. We should have our own, trains. We should have our own everything. We should have our own Boeing and Airbus. We should build the planes here. We should build the vehicles here. We should build the trains. We should build every single thing that you can speak of, whether it is televisions. We should be able to build it here. So when we go, with this mindset, and we have identified the problem and we understand the task at hand, that is the rapid rebuilding of the African continent, the rest is history for us as Africans. The rest will be history, I'm telling you. So what do you think should be the solution as we go forward? When we see the infighting between the neo-colonial political parties within the African continent, what comes to your mind? What do you think should be the approach? What should be the solution to the African continent as we are seeing it when we are facing all these attacks? And what do you think about the analysis that I've given here and the analysis which Dr. Kwame Nkrumah gave? Put your suggestions, put what you think in the comment section, and I will be answering to every comment. In the past, we have been answering to all the comments, and I'll be answering to all the comments. I'll be responding to them myself. I want to thank you once again. My name is Kwame Gonza once again, and I love you all. We love you all. Mahlet love you. Connect Africa, Connect Africa loves you. Please share the platform. I see about 58 people, 60 people on the platform. Please like the video, all of you, so that we can have those 58 likes, and the video will be recommended to other people so that they can get this information. This is very important information, because we have arrived and we are born in such a generation that we must make a contribution to the rebuilding of the African continent. We must make a contribution. Me and you, we must make a contribution to the rebuilding of the African continent, both on the continent and in the diaspora. All of you are Africans. That is what, of course, at least what Nkrumah said, that all people of African descent, whether they belong in the North American, territories, whether they are in South America, Caribbean, all of us are Africans. All of you are Africans. All of them are Africans, and they belong to the African nation. That is what we have to understand as African people. So what do you think that should be our strategy going forward? Put your suggestions in the comment section. I want to thank you. Please like the video and share the video with others. Share the video with others so that others also can get this information and digest it for themselves, so that they will know that we are not taking information from external forces and imperialists, but rather we are taking information and our suggestions from the writings of our ancestors like Marcus Garvey and others, Nkrumah, and all of them, our ancestors, that's where we take our information that we talk about here. And we don't only come here and put videos, clickbait videos, and videos to trap you to watch and stuff like that, without nothing. But we bring those videos and then we add, a solid analysis to show you what really it means and how beneficial it is to the African continent and how unbeneficial it is to the African continent, of course, to the interests of the African people, all of us across the world, on the continent and in the diaspora. Like I mentioned, Nkrumah said that all people of African descent in North America, Caribbean, and anywhere belong to the African nation. They are Africans and belong to the African nation. I want to thank you once again. Please, 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 please subscribe to the channel if you are new to the channel, and like the channel and share it with other people so that they can be able to understand the struggle we are engaged in and the times we are living in. This is the time. This is the time. If we lose this time, we are not going to survive. It's going to be difficult for us as a race to survive once again. You heard the words of President Xi Jinping when he visited Moscow. A time ago, President Xi Jinping, the president of China, mentioned that we are living, in a time when changes are happening that have never happened in the last 60 years. I mean, in the last 100 years. Okay, the changes, he said that the changes that we are going through that are happening right now, they have never happened, in 100 years. Therefore, we Africans also, we have to take advantage of those changes. We have to take advantage of those changes and do something about what is happening. And that means us, also fighting for the African continent. And that means fighting against imperialism and neocolonialism and its agents on the African continent. And one of the things which Nkrumah said, of course, if I may not go too far, let me just finish this one before I close, is that Nkrumah said that the best way to defeat imperialism and neocolonialism is to, is to expose it whenever you say it. Whenever you see imperialism, whenever you see it, expose it. That is the best way to defeat neocolonialism and imperialism. So what we are showing you is that all the people, most of the people that we are seeing on a continent who call themselves governments, they are actually colonial governments that need to be found a solution to by the African people. So thank you once again. I want to appreciate you. Like the video. We appreciate you. We love you. We just love you very much for the support that you are giving the channel. Come in, share the video with other people, like the video, and it's very, very important that we grow. It's very important that we grow together. We grow an alternative platform, and of course, let me remind everyone that we have, we are present right now on Rumble. As you know, we need a backup plan. They may try to come against us because we are Pan-Africanists. YouTube, how it does. Therefore, if you go to Rumble, please support us on Rumble and subscribe to our channel on Rumble. It is just the same, Connect Africa, and you will see our logo. It's just Connect Africa. So please subscribe to our channel on Rumble. We will soon start broadcasting on Rumble. We'll soon having these videos going direct to Rumble. So therefore, subscribe to our Rumble. And we want to thank you once again. My name is Kwame Gonza, and the platform is called Connect Africa. See you guys next time. I'm coming in to do an analysis on some updates on what happened with the Dangote refinery. Of course, there's a Nigerian journalist who came out to expose a Western institution which was bribing him so that he can badmouth the Dangote oil refinery. So I'm coming with those updates, and we will come with an extended analysis tomorrow. But I'm coming with a little bit of updates. So if you can stay behind, I'll be glad. At the top of the hour, I'll be doing that analysis. Thank you so much once again. We love you all, and subscribe to the channel, share the channel with other people, like the video. Let us get all those likes, those 54 likes of the people who are watching currently. We love you very much, guys, and we appreciate you for being part of us. Thank you so much, and be blessed.